Amazing transformation? Man discovers hidden bond with lost puppy after one unbelievable day. Jack stood in the flickering light of his father's garage, surrounded by the memories of a man who had once been a legend in their tight-knit suburban community. The hum of the fluorescent bulbs mirrored the buzzing unease in his chest. It was a drizzly afternoon, the kind that blurred the boundaries between hope and despair. The weight of expectations loomed like a storm cloud. Since his father's passing, Jack wrestled with the feeling of inadequacy, unsure if he could ever measure up. The business struggled, each car he turned down echoing the doubts in his mind. Was this the legacy his father wanted for him? In a moment of desperation, he decided to scavenge for spare parts in an old lot, hoping to find something of value to salvage. The raindrops tapped softly on the rusty metal, and the world felt muted. But suddenly, something caught his eye. A scruffy, lost puppy shivering beneath a battered truck. A wave of instinct flooded him. He hesitated, wrestling with the echoes of his father's work ethic that reminded him he should stay focused on survival, not take on another mouth to feed. Still, the trembling pup called out in a way that stirred something deep within him. He couldn't leave it behind. "Buddy," he named the puppy, the word tumbling from his lips as he scooped the creature into his arms. His heart clenched tight, tangled in new responsibility, yet he felt a strange warmth blossom in his chest. They spent the day together, and to his astonishment, Buddy began sniffing around the garage, honing in on mechanical problems Jack had overlooked. Each wag of Buddy's tail seemed to flick at the cobwebs of Jack's passion, igniting an old flame he'd thought extinguished amidst the burdens of bills and loss. But just as a flicker of hope ignited in his heart, the inevitable shadows crept back. Mr. Hargrove, the polished businessman who seemed to dominate every corner of the town, viewed Jack's success, if you could call it that, as a threat. Jack's small victories with Buddy threatened Hargrove's polished franchise, and soon whispers of doubt spread like wildfire. Just another mechanic, people would say, and underneath it all, Jack felt the sting of judgment, the tension rising as he confronted his own worth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension spiraled as Jack faced the choice of fighting back against Hargrove or walking away. Was it worth risking everything he'd built when the odds felt stacked against him? Each time he saw Buddy perk up, eager to help, Jack felt a gnawing sense of loss deepen, and questions swirled through his mind. Did he want to leave behind a tarnished legacy, or would he honor his father by standing firm, by being seen not just as another mechanic, but as a father, a provider, a fighter? Amid the clutter of his garage, Jack stumbled upon old photographs of his father with dogs beside him, creating a remarkable connection he never knew existed. That fleeting moment of discovery sent a jolt through him, a realization that he too could shape his own legacy. With Buddy at his side, Jack saw the shadow of doubt in the distance growing closer. Would he rise to fight for what was right, or crumble beneath the expectations? The choice loomed, and as he looked out at the rain-soaked street, the question echoed in his mind. Which path would he choose, and what was at stake for Sarah? The murmur of doubt festered in Jack's mind like a slow-moving storm. He found himself late into the night, clutching a wrench, staring blankly at an engine that seemed as lost as he felt. Buddy lay sprawled beside him, a comforting weight in the darkness, a stark reminder that even the smallest creature could offer unwavering loyalty. As the rhythmic tapping of raindrops outside continued, Jack reflected on the photographs he had unearthed, images of his father imbued with purpose and resolution. That image struck him harder than he'd like to admit. It was not merely a family photo. It exemplified a life dedicated to both work and companionship. Jack's father had carved out a space for joy amid the grind. In that moment of realization, Jack acknowledged he had forsaken the vibrant spirit of the garage, letting the pressures consume him. He had an arsenal of tools and knowledge. Why not, he thought, invoke his father's spirit and reignite that early love for mechanics. The next morning he made a decision. He would transform his modest garage into a sanctuary for both people and pets. The local community had an unspoken need for reliable services, not just for automobiles, but for pet owners, including training, grooming, and care. With Buddy's instincts guiding him, Jack envisioned a place that fused the tangible skills he inherited with the warmth of companionship he had discovered. He mapped out plans for a dual service, mechanics paired with dog care, a unique offering his father would have supported. Marking up old blueprints, he felt an unfamiliar surge of excitement push away the deep-rooted fears. Buddy, resting his head on Jack's knee, seemed to echo the unspoken agreement. This was their new path. However, as Jack ventured into this new world, echoes of Mr. Hargrove grew louder. Hargrove's looming presence seemed to wrap around the garage, a reminder that such unorthodox ideas were often met with skepticism, if not hostility. Jack knew he wasn't just facing a disgruntled competitor, he was diverging from the legacy of standard mechanics, reaching beyond machinery and harnessing the deeper connections that defined his father's work. Days turned into weeks, and Jack found himself embroiled in conflict, both internal and external. He discovered an innate knack for marketing, leaning into social media to showcase Buddy's uncanny ability to identify issues with vehicles. Videos surfaced online, evidence of the bond they had formed, not just as man and dog, but as guardians of quality service. Yet, with each post and story shared, Hargrove's disdain only grew fiercer. "You think a lost mutt can save your failing business?" Hargrove spat one day in front of a gathering crowd. The energy in the air crackled with tension, and a knot formed in Jack's stomach. He knew he had to respond. But how? To lash out would only confirm Hargrove's words. To withhold his truth would silence their newfound bond. Jack took a deep breath, letting the crowd grow quiet, feeling Buddy shift by his side, sensing the weight of the moment. The conflict was about more than competition. It was about defining who he wanted to be. He had a choice to engage, to innovate, or to retreat. The weight of tradition pressed heavily on his shoulders, yet Jack felt the warmth of his father's spirit guiding him. This was more than an argument. It was a quiet revolution of spirit. As he stared into the faces surrounding him, he realized a decision lay ahead that could make or break his venture. With Buddy beside him, Jack saw a flicker of something monumental brewing, a chance to stand firm against the tides of doubt. In that moment, the path forward grew clearer, the stakes elevated. What would he fight for, and who was he becoming in the process? As Hargrove's glares intensified, Jack knew he had to take a stand. But would it be enough to secure the future he dared to dream? The moment lingered, electrified with potential. He could feel the tide beginning to shift around him, but the outcome was still uncertain. And that uncertainty loomed ahead, waiting. What choice would he make when the pressure of his ambition and the legacy of his father crashed together like waves against the shore? Jack's heart raced as he stood before the crowd, Hargrove's taunting words echoing in the back of his mind. This wasn't just about proving a point, it was about redefining who he was and what he stood for. The crossroads lay before him, vibrant and daunting. With a deep breath, Jack lifted his chin, an unexpected fire igniting within him. "You're not wrong, Mr. Hargrove," he began, choosing his words carefully. There was a certain power in vulnerability, he realized. Buddy is a lost mutt, but together, we're finding our way. This isn't just a business, it's a family we're building, an innovative approach to service. The crowd's silence held palpable tension, each individual contemplating Jack's transformation from the previously beaten mechanic to a passionate idealist. He wasn't just a lone wolf anymore. He had Buddy. He had hope. And what had he to lose by sharing that? "People don't just want their cars fixed," he continued, his voice stronger with each word. "They want trust. They want assurance. They want someone who understands what they value, companionship. Buddy's loyalty serves as a reminder to all of us." He gestured to the dog at his side who had perched himself proudly, ears perked as if he understood the gravity of the moment. Hargrove's expression flickered, a crack in his facade momentarily exposing his underlying discomfort. But Jack pressed on. "I'm not here to fight you, Mr. Hargrove. I'm here because I believe there's room for both of us in this industry. I'm offering something different, and you'd do well to consider that." As he spoke, Jack felt a different kind of energy building around him, a fervor tinged with confidence. He finally understood that his father had instilled in him not just the mechanics of repair, but the importance of connection. The garage had always been a place of laughter, warmth, and collaboration. This realization was a turning point, a marker of personal growth that had been stifled by fear and doubt. The once wavering notion that he could blend mechanics with compassion had culminated in this audacious stance against Hargrove. The doubts that plagued his nights faded into background noise, merging into a resolute determination that he could build a legacy worth fighting for, one that would honor the man who had raised him. After his speech, he felt liberated, yet Hargrove, sensing the shift in Jack's demeanor, stepped forward. "You think this is just about words? I'll see you in the ring, Jack." The threat was thinly veiled, but highlighted Hargrove's intention to leverage official channels against him. An unwelcome but necessary flash of reality. This was just the beginning of his challenges. With the crowd murmuring with interest, Jack felt a renewed resolve stir within him. It was clear now, as he glanced down at Buddy, who seemed to sense the change in atmosphere. A partnership was blooming. They would face the odds together. "I'll gladly meet any challenge you place before me," Jack replied, the fire in his voice simmering to embers of determination. "But I won't back down from doing what I believe is right. Not now, and not ever." In that moment, Jack found clarity that had eluded him since his father's passing. This wasn't merely about survival or competing with Hargrove. It was about leaving a mark, a legacy rooted in the things his father had taught him. The future stretched ahead, uncertain yet shimmering with possibility. He could feel its magnetic pull, enticing him to forge ahead. As he stepped away from the crowd, they began to disperse, whispers trailing behind him like the wake of a ship. Jack recognized that he was no longer just a mechanic battling against the storm. He was a beacon for something altogether new and invigorating. But could he maintain this momentum against Hargrove's inevitable retaliation? The stakes had escalated, and Jack was acutely aware that the true battle lay ahead. The questions lingered, ominous, yet exhilarating. Was he prepared to protect his dream, even when the darkness loomed larger? As Jack walked away from the crowd, a twist of excitement and apprehension settled in his stomach. The exchange with Hargrove had ignited a spark, but it also left him with the realization that he was stepping onto a battlefield. The exhilaration of his newfound voice was quickly met with the daunting prospect of confrontation. What if words alone were not enough? Buddy trotted beside him, his tail wagging as if to remind Jack of the bond they shared. That connection provided solace amid uncertainty. Jack could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He was not just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the future he envisioned for them both. Back at the garage, the dim lights flickered on, illuminating the rows of tools and parts that had long felt like an extension of himself. But today, they took on a new meaning. They symbolized the heart and soul of what he was building. Jack took a moment to appreciate the familiar scent of motor oil and metal, feeling grounded in a way that had escaped him just moments before. He tossed his bag on the workbench, glancing down at Buddy, who had quickly settled at his feet, eyes reflecting unconditional loyalty. "All right, Buddy," Jack said, kneeling to scratch behind the dog's ears. "We've got work to do." He dug into the projects awaiting his attention, but soon found his thoughts drifting back to Hargrove. The confrontation wasn't just a professional one. It was personal in the most profound sense. Hargrove's words lingered, revealing a truth that Jack had been reluctant to acknowledge. Competition drove innovation. If Hargrove represented a model built on cold efficiency and profit, then Jack needed to refine his approach, to build a business that was both sustainable and humane. The next morning, Jack arrived early, determined to sharpen his business plan. He began sketching strategies on a whiteboard, colorful markers spread around him like stars in the universe of his ideas. He envisioned community workshops, car care classes, and customer outreach initiatives centered around service and integrity. He wasn't just going to compete. He was going to redefine what success meant in the automotive world. But as thoughts raced through his head, so too did doubts. What if people didn't buy into his vision? What if Hargrove was right, and compassion had no place in a cutthroat industry? Jack rubbed his forehead, wrestling against the tug-of-war in his mind. He envisioned Hargrove's scornful smirk, which only fueled his drive further. Later that evening, after closing up shop, Jack felt drained yet invigorated. He took Buddy for a long walk along a nearby park, the ambiance of twilight wrapping around them like a soft blanket. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape, he suddenly stopped. Jack looked down at Buddy, whose playful antics brought a smile to his face. "Tomorrow's the day, boy. We'll workshop this vision until it glows." Jack chuckled, the laughter echoing into the evening air. A sense of clarity washed over him, the overwhelming fear receding with each step he took beside Buddy. He could not just react to Hargrove's confrontation. He needed to explore his own strengths, instincts, and the innate drive to connect. As he envisioned the future of the garage, he felt at peace, yet a thrill electrified his veins. But once again, the dark cloud of looming challenges clawed at him. Hargrove was ruthless, and Jack knew that the confrontation was inevitable. How would he face the pushback? Jack turned to Buddy, whose head tilted slightly as if he understood, and an idea ignited in his mind. What if he turned the moment of confrontation into an opportunity? An event, perhaps, that would showcase his philosophy of service. The spark within Jack flared brighter, emboldening him to envision the next step. The time was coming to face his antagonist head-on, to show not just Hargrove, but the world that he stood resolute in his beliefs. Would he find the support he needed to make it happen? Or would the shadows of doubt consume him before he could unveil his plans? Jack awoke the following day with purpose thrumming in his veins. The sunlight streamed through the small garage windows, igniting the dust particles dancing in the air. The weight of his ambitions hung above him, but it felt lighter, invigorating, as if the dawn's light was fueling a deeper determination. It was time to take action. He rolled out of bed, Buddy bounding excitedly around his feet. The dog seemed to sense Jack's fiery resolve, a mirror of their shared journey. Jack grabbed his notepad and, over a steaming cup of coffee, refined his vision further. His plan wasn't just about competition. It was about forging a narrative that resonated. Through sketches and rapid notes, he envisioned a space that combined innovation and compassion. He saw workshops not only promoted practical skills but built relationships tethered by trust. Arriving at the garage, he felt a sense of ownership wash over him, as if he was its steward, not just its operator. The workbench gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights, laden with tools that each told a story of challenge and triumph. But rather than jump into mechanical tasks today, he needed to build an identity for the garage, one that would draw people in and set him apart from Hargrove's empire. He turned to the whiteboard, which had earlier been a canvas for scattered ideas. Today, it became a tactical map for outreach. Jack organized columns of strategies, local partnerships with schools for educational collaboration, crafting unique customer loyalty programs, and community service days to enhance his presence. He scribbled and rewrote passionately, his heart racing as clarity washed over him. Mid-afternoon, while cleaning up from brainstorming, the bell over the garage door rang. Startled, Jack looked up to see Clara, one of his longtime customers and a community organizer, stepping through the door. She greeted him with an engaging smile, her presence warm and buoyant. "Heard you've got some big ideas brewing here, Jack," she said, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. Jack felt an immediate urge to share his vision, to align with her enthusiasm. "I'm thinking about hosting workshops and outreach initiatives, things that can really connect us to the community. I want people to see that traditional business models can evolve to prioritize people over profits." Clara's brow furrowed slightly, intrigued. "That's ambitious. Do you think you're ready for that kind of commitment?" The question pierced through him, and in that moment doubt threatened to twist his stomach. Was he ready? Could he truly stand against an entrenched competitor while promoting such ideals? But then he recalled the nights of wrestling with strategies, how every idea had been a piece of his growth. "Yes," he asserted, surprising even himself with the steadiness of his voice. I have to be, for myself, for Buddy. Clara nodded slowly, contemplating. I can help connect you with local groups who might support this vision. A kickoff event could help rally more folks behind it. Jack's pulse quickened, a wave of hope urging him onward. That's it, the moment I need. If I can capture the community's interest, I might truly stand against Hargrove. As Clara and Jack discussed logistics, ideas flooded forth, creating flyers, engaging social media, inviting customers to share their automotive stories. Every idea ignited excitement within him. The antagonism he felt from Hargrove transformed into something that fueled his plan rather than undermining it. Yet, with this momentum came a looming realization. The confrontation was drawing near, and he would inevitably face scrutiny from skeptics, perhaps even Hargrove himself. The tension surged within him, but he found solace in Clara's steady presence, the promise of collaboration cooling his inner turmoil. I'll reach out to some contacts and get things moving, Clara said, rising from her seat. Just keep in mind, leadership has its weight. Jack nodded, the weight conspicuously returning to his shoulders. The support was offered, yet he felt alone in the echo of uncertainty. As Clara left, Jack gazed out the garage windows, the sun descending behind distant buildings, a metaphor for the approaching confrontation. And he knew he must brace himself. What awaited him in the world beyond this garage? He felt both a thrill and an icy shudder, knowing that now was the crucial moment when he would either rise or falter against Hargrove's icy grip. Little did he know, a twist was looming, one that would complicate his path unexpectedly. Would the emerging support be enough, or would the winds of change sweep him away before he could firmly plant his feet? The days melted into one another, each filled with a frenzied mix of planning and anticipation. Jack stood in the garage, surrounded by the warm scent of oil and sweat, his workshop becoming a sanctuary for his dreams. Clothes stained from work and determination adorned his frame, yet beneath that rugged image lay a heart beating with uncertainty. Every morning he reviewed his strategies, partnerships with local schools, workshops fostering skills, and customer loyalty programs. Each idea flowed from a deep well of ambition, but as he sketched them out, an undeniable fear stirred within him. Was this transformation truly possible? Did he have what it took to forge a new path in a world resistant to change? The first signs of collaboration arrived in the form of missed calls and scattered messages from Clara. Her connections began to bear fruit. Community organizations buzzed with interest in his workshops. Yet every ring of his phone became a reminder of the pressure mounting upon him. Excitement simmered just below his skin, but with it came a deep-seated anxiety that wound tighter with each passing minute. On one particularly tense afternoon, while double-checking the flyers he had designed, Jack received an unexpected visit from one of Hargrove's loyal customers, Barry, a grizzled man who had been a fixture around the local motor scene for years. The sight of Barry fanned flames of anxiety. Would the news of Jack's plans reach Hargrove's ears before he was ready? Jack, Barry's voice was gruff but steady. I caught wind of the changes you're planning here. You got the folks talking, you know. Jack's gut twisted. And what do you think? He asked, half hopeful, half afraid. Barry let out a gravelly chuckle. Folks think you're either brave or crazy. You know Hargrove won't take this lightly. He's a lion in this jungle. You'll need a plan. The heat of doubt crept in at Barry's words. What if catching the community's interest simply set him on a collision course with Hargrove's wrath? As Jack opened his mouth to respond, a strange flicker of clarity washed over him. He saw in Barry's wizened face a challenge, an invitation to confront his fears and embrace the chaos that change would inevitably bring. I appreciate the heads up, Barry, Jack said slowly, considering his words. But if I don't step up now, I'll never get anywhere. I can't keep waiting to be told to take the leap. Barry's expression softened. That's the spirit. Just remember, it's not just about what you offer. It's about who you are as a man in this business. People will follow a leader, so be aware of the example you set. After he left, hunger surged within Jack, an insatiable need to prove not just to the community but to himself. Stepping into the unknown, he wrote a message to Clara, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he set a date for his first workshop. He outlined everything, the topics, the goals, even the tone he wanted to convey. That evening, while Buddy lay curled at his feet, Jack pored over the details. This wasn't just a business venture. It was about creating a sanctuary where people would come together, a space where his passion for mechanics could intertwine with the community's needs. Yet, a potent worry lingered in the air. The shadow of Hargrove loomed larger than ever, an anticipated confrontation that would demand that Jack truly define himself. The next morning, a notification on his phone buzzed insistently. Clara had some news. Jack's heart raced as he opened the message. Was this the connection that would seal his momentum, or a sign of looming conflict? Unease washed over him, battling with hope. His hands trembled as he set aside his coffee. What if this led to the scrutiny he dreaded? He had thrust himself into this pursuit with reckless determination, and now he had to face the truth. He was on an irretrievable path. The moment had arrived. Whether calamity or triumph awaited him, Jack braced himself for the unknown. What news awaited him, and would it propel him forward or send him crashing back into his doubts? The very air around him crackled with anticipation. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he opened Clara's message. It was a simple line, yet it held the weight of his future. "We've secured a venue for your workshop. Let's meet to discuss." Time seemed suspended as he stared at the words, reality shifting beneath him like sand. A venue. It elevated his plans into a tangible realm, yet each letter pulsated with the threat of everything he sought to build collapsing before it had even begun. He paced the garage, the rhythmic thud of his boots echoing against the concrete floor. The garage, once a space for quiet reflection and modest creations, had become a battleground for his aspirations. Could he truly transform this workshop into something that would challenge Hargrove's dominion over the local mechanic scene? Desperation and determination clashed violently within him. "Decide, Jack. You have to decide what this means for you," he muttered under his breath. This wasn't just about mechanics. It was about legacy, about redefining himself in a world that saw him only as Hargrove's underling. His heart raced at the thought. Jack felt the need to act instead of waiting for the ground beneath him to shift again. He grabbed a loose piece of paper and started jotting down everything he envisioned for the workshop. Hands-on experiences, community-building discussions, and authentic mentorship for the young minds eager to tinker. Each detail evoked a sense of purpose. It propelled him deeper into the momentum of his vision. Yet, as the thrill of creation flooded him, a nagging voice whispered over the excitement, reminding him of the inevitable confrontation with Hargrove. "You'll have to face him sooner or later," it said, reminiscent of Barry's words. The thought struck fear into his heart and ignited an inner battle. He could allow Hargrove's looming presence to stifle his fire or wield it as motivation. With what felt like the weight of the world upon his shoulders, Jack typed a response to Clara, confirming the meeting. It was a step into the unknown, and uncertainty gnawed at him. Would this leap not only elevate his career, but also redefine his identity? In the days leading up to the meeting with Clara, Jack threw himself into preparations. He organized his thoughts, rehearsing what he would say, honing his pitch for the workshop that stood before him. Each time he whispered his ideas aloud, he envisioned a crowd of eager faces listening, learning, and connecting in a way that was never possible under Hargrove's rule. But the closer he got to the meeting, the more palpable his anxiety became. He envisioned Clara's expression when he outlined his grand ideals, and the sheer vulnerability of laying out his dreams felt raw and unguarded. In a moment of clarity, he acknowledged the truth. It was about more than just business. It was about leadership, about laying bare his vision for others to see and, he hoped, embrace. As the meeting approached, Jack found himself taking long walks with Buddy, the rhythm of his steps syncing with the thoughts racing in his mind. Would he have the courage to articulate his passion? Could he recognize the unseen strength that pulsed within him? He had to confront not just Hargrove but also the doubts that had haunted him for so long. When the day finally arrived and Jack sat across from Clara, he felt every fiber of his being focused on this moment. Clara launched into the logistical details as Jack's heart thundered. He had to seize this opportunity. The fire in his gut demanded it. With a steadying breath, he leaned forward and spoke with conviction. This isn't just a workshop, Clara. This is a chance for me to change everything. It's my way of redefining success, of breaking free from the shadows. Clara's eyes widened, mirroring Jack's own sense of determination. But before he could continue, a familiar name escaped his lips involuntarily. Hargrove? The name hung heavy in the air, and Clara's expression shifted, as if sensing the storm brewing beyond their conversation. Jack felt the ground give beneath him. What impact would his boldness have? As his words settled, he realized it was time to confront the one force standing in his way, the very man who had held dominion over his life for too long. The tension soared in the room. Jack knew that to move forward, he had to prepare for a battle that loomed ever closer. His journey would demand that he face Hargrove, and with it, the ultimate test of everything he had built within himself. Would he falter, or would he rise? The future was bright, yet the storm was imminent. One question lingered unaddressed. How would he confront Hargrove, reclaiming not just his ambitions, but the very essence of who he became in the process? Jack sat back, the weight of his words still hanging thick between him and Clara. The air crackled with the electricity of unspoken tension. He wanted to dismiss the moment, to shake off the fear that clawed at his insides. Yet Hargrove loomed like a dark cloud over the horizon of his thoughts. How was he supposed to transform into the leader he envisioned when a piece of his past remained firmly entrenched in his present? Clara's expression sharpened, her eyebrows knitting together with concern. Jack, it sounds like you have a lot you want to say. I sense Hargrove is on your mind. Talk to me. What do you really want to do? Her words pierced through his haze, and he realized this was his moment to navigate the labyrinth of his own aspirations. He wasn't simply breaking free from Hargrove. He was pushing beyond the limits he had set for himself. I need to show others that there's a way out from under his shadow, Jack replied, feeling the pulse of his heart quicken. I want this workshop to be a beacon for anyone who feels trapped, like I have. Clara nodded, her gaze both encouraging and piercing. And facing Hargrove? What does that mean in your plan? Are you ready for that? The question ricocheted in his mind, each bounce amplifying the fear that the answer could undermine his resolve. Jack inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the moment. Facing Hargrove was not just about their professional rivalry. It was a confrontation with his own insecurities. I guess, he hesitated. I have to start framing this in a way that empowers me. I can't let him define my path anymore. Exactly, Clara said. Channel that fear. Consider what you want to communicate when you meet him. The challenge lit a fire within Jack. No longer was he just a mechanic longing for independence. He was an architect of a new narrative, a story where he emerged strong, purposeful, and in control. He envisioned himself standing in front of the workshop attendees, imparting knowledge not only about car repair, but about standing up for one's dreams, even at the risk of confrontation. Maybe it's time to meet Hargrove head-on, he finally said, the rhythm of his pulse synchronizing with the clarity growing inside him. To confront him, lay out my vision, and demand recognition, both for myself and to inspire others. But that requires preparation. I need to know my strengths and potential weaknesses. This isn't just about business tactics. It's about showing him that I'm not afraid to challenge his methods. Clara's eyes sparkled as if she could see the transformation within him. You've got the passion, Jack. Now let's formulate a strategy. You can't go into this blind. Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Their dialogue was shaping more than a plan. It was forging a roadmap to his true identity. He could almost hear the whispers of the ambitions he had silenced for too long. As they laid out steps, Jack delved deep into his past. Skills he thought were irrelevant suddenly surfaced, ideas about mentorship and community support taking shape in his mind. The knowledge clashed against his impending confrontation, and he felt a simmering tension around him. A confrontation loomed, but he was no longer viewing it as a threat. It transformed into an opportunity for growth, a vital part of his journey. After an hour connecting his thoughts, Clara presented him with a key reminder. Prepare not just for success, but for how you'll handle whatever Hargrove throws your way. He knows you well. You must be ready. Determined, Jack felt the hilt of courage within him. The words "what if" shifted to when. He was no longer waiting for someone else to make the first move. He would rise to the occasion. Their meeting concluded, and as Jack stepped out into the cool evening air, a new conviction surged through him. With every step, he felt his past feuds with Hargrove becoming less a source of fear and more a catalyst for transformation. But as he crossed the threshold of his garage, the flicker of self-doubt tried to creep in once again. Could he truly face someone who had held so much power over him? The answer sat at the edges of his consciousness, an understanding that the next steps lay rooted in the conviction he had found within. The time was coming soon for reckoning, the very moment that he'd either claim his identity or lose himself trying. What would Hargrove say when they met face to face, and how would Jack ensure that this encounter did not crush the fragile momentum he had built? Jack awoke the following morning with a singular focus. The time had arrived to confront Hargrove. He moved through his usual morning routine with a blend of purpose and anxiety, his hands brushing against the familiar tools that had once been sources of doubt. Each wrench, every cog, was a reminder of past failures and successes alike. But today, they symbolized potential. The sight of his reflection in the garage's polished surface pulled him deeper into contemplation. He was more than just a mechanic. He was a man on the brink of a pivotal change. The face staring back at him seemed foreign, yet familiar, a blend of determination and lingering uncertainty. Jack recognized the urgency within himself. This was no longer about fixing cars. It was about fixing himself. He spent the morning preparing not only for the scheduled workshop, but for the impending confrontation with Hargrove. The strategic notes Clara had helped him create were scattered across his workspace. Each note carried the weight of his resolve. As he practiced his speech, the words flowed with newfound clarity. He spoke with fervor about the workshop's objective, imagining how his vision would resonate with his audience. The tension coiling in his chest began to morph into excitement. But then, an unwelcome thought intruded. Hargrove had a knack for disarming people, turning confidence into compliance with a few carefully chosen words. Jack replayed past encounters in his mind. He could almost hear Hargrove's dismissive laughter. That laughter was fuel, igniting his resolve. Hargrove might see Jack as inconsequential, but today, he would be confronted with a version of Jack that demanded to be acknowledged. The clock ticked mercilessly, and time slipped away. Jack's heart raced as he mentally prepared his arguments, rehearsing aloud. Logic, passion, and undeniable results swirled in his mind. He needed to articulate not just the vision for himself, but also the purpose that could reflect a broader change in their field. He found himself at the workshop surrounded by the energy of anticipation. Engaging with the attendees brought him a level of comfort he had yearned for, a sense of belonging, fueled by the shared interest in automotive repair and personal growth. Jack shared insights about overcoming obstacles and the importance of mentorship, while his mind rested heavily on his looming encounter with Hargrove. As the workshop wrapped up with applause and thoughtful discussions, Jack spotted Hargrove's familiar frame leaning against the doorway. The mere sight of him surged through Jack like electricity, igniting both fear and determination. Hargrove's gaze flicked over the workshop attendees and settled on Jack, a smirk curling his lips. The ease of Hargrove's stance was taunting, as if he already anticipated Jack's faltering. Jack's heart thudded in his chest. He knew this was the moment that would define his evolution, or end in silent defeat. He focused on everything he had practiced, grounding himself in the confidence he had nurtured over the past few hours. "Jack," Hargrove called, his voice smooth yet laced with condescension. "I hear you've been busy rallying the troops. It's cute." The challenge hung thick in the air. Jack swallowed hard, anchoring his thoughts amid the tumult of emotions. "I'm not just rallying anyone, Hargrove. I'm showing them a new path, one where they're not dictated by your old ways." The tension tightened, shadows dancing in the corners of Jack's mind as he stood firm. Hargrove's smirk faltered, the derision shifting to something sharper. Beneath the veneer of authority, Jack sensed that Hargrove was grappling with something. Fear of change, perhaps, or an acknowledgement of Jack's maturation. This was the confrontation he had wanted. Yet as Jack looked into Hargrove's eyes, he recognized the shifting dynamics of power. Would Hargrove retaliate with words sharp enough to slice through Jack's newfound conviction? Or would this be the moment where Jack's courage demanded respect? The air thickened as they continued to gaze at one another, each silently weighing the stakes. Jack felt an electric pulse of possibility. The outcome was unresolved, and he stood at the precipice, feeling the weight of his next words. The moment had arrived for reckoning, but as Jack began to articulate his vision, he wondered, did Hargrove still have more power than he had anticipated? The atmosphere in the garage was charged with unspoken tension, both men standing at the crux of a transformative moment that would alter their futures. Jack cleared his throat, feeling the weight of expectation upon him. "I'm not here to threaten you, Michael." His tone was steady, yet firm. "I'm here to show people what it means to build a business founded on trust and loyalty, not merely profit." Hargrove's expression morphed into one of incredulity, as if Jack's words were an affront to an established order. But Jack pressed on. "I've spent too long watching you dictate who gets to succeed in this town, and I'm done allowing that to happen. My vision is more than just a workshop. It's a movement toward honest service. With every person who supports this initiative, I'm building something that can't be undermined by intimidation." Jack regained the confidence of his earlier days. That fiery spirit ignited inside him once again. Every word he delivered pushed him closer to an undeniable truth. He was worthy of respect, no matter Hargrove's towering reputation. Unfazed by Jack's newfound resolve, Hargrove chuckled, a cold sound that echoed against the walls. "You think a handful of loyal customers can outlast a business empire? They're just numbers on a spreadsheet, Jack. You'll learn soon enough how fast a reputation can crumble." The moment hung between them, a test not only of Jack's resolve but of Hargrove's understanding of evolution within their industry. Jack looked around the gathered crowd, fellow mechanics, past customers, curious locals, and felt the pulse of unwavering support behind him. He could sense it, just as he felt Buddy at his side, steadfast and loyal. "I'm not fighting against you, Michael," Jack said, his voice resonating through the garage. "I'm fighting for something greater. People want authenticity, not merely service. They want to engage with someone who understands their needs, not a faceless corporation. That's what I'm offering, and the community is responding, whether you acknowledge it or not." Hargrove raised an eyebrow, his smirk faltering. The crowd's murmur of approval rippled through the air, and Jack seized the opportunity to solidify his point. "You might have had a monopoly on this town's garages for too long, but the world is changing. It's no longer about competing for a market. It's about earning trust. Trust that I am cultivating every day." As the words flowed, Jack could feel the warmth of triumph wash over him. He stood taller, grounded by his understanding of the purpose he was creating. This was not merely a confrontation. It was a clarion call for his vision and legacy. Caught off guard, Hargrove shifted, though he maintained his composure. "You're naive if you think your ideals will surmount the realities of this business." "Perhaps," Jack replied, his heart racing. "But I'd rather face that reality fighting for what I believe in than languishing as a pawn in someone else's game." Jack's words hung in the air, and for a moment, the crowd held its breath. The energy had shifted. The once menacing presence of Hargrove now seemed marked by uncertainty. Jack felt the undeniable power in his conviction, and deep down, he knew he had crossed an important threshold. For the first time, he was able to envision not just the success of his workshop, but also his influence within the community, not as an underdog, but as a changemaker. Hargrove was a formidable adversary, but his resolve paled against the passion igniting the garage that day. The echoes of applause broke the silence, swelling around Jack like a wave of support. His heart swelled with gratitude. He was no longer alone. With every heartbeat, he felt more confident, his path illuminated by the encouragement of those rallying behind him. As the crowd began to disperse, Jack caught Hargrove's eye one last time. "This is my moment to redefine what success means." Hargrove glared, the tension palpable as he left without a retort, the defeated shadow of the past that Jack had once feared. Jack turned back to the remaining crowd, feeling the air shift around him. Their expressions reflected admiration and intrigue, painting a picture of community spirit echoing in the garage. In that instant, Jack realized this journey was not missed opportunities tied to loss. It was an unfolding legacy, a place where mechanics and pet care converged, a sanctuary that acknowledged compassion as a fundamental principle. Jack smiled, looking down at Buddy, whose tail wagged with approval. We did it, boy. We just took the first step toward something truly special. With newfound recognition and strength, Jack affirmed his commitment to serve and teach, their journey together leading him to a place of confidence and determination. No longer trapped by the fear of inadequacy, Jack finally embraced the path laid before him, a legacy crafted not only with skill as a mechanic, but as a leader who stood grounded in truth, vision, and purpose. Now, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Make your voice heard. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. You need to support stories of personal overcoming and transformation.